Good night. Welcome to Conversation with Rick Burke. Of course, this is Rick Burke here in New York. Share the link, everybody. I hope that you had a great day or you're having a good day, wherever, or a good night, wherever you're watching from. Text me, let me know whether you're watching here in North America, in the Northeast, or in the West Coast, or from the West Coast. Text me. Let me know what town or city or state you're in, whether you're in Guyana, the Caribbean, Europe, Asia. If you're in Asia and Europe, good morning. Africa, good morning. I have some fans now in South Africa and I think Botswana. Some Guyanese teachers there. Good morning to you. It's early morning there. But wherever you're watching from, hope you have a good day. I have to follow my technician's advice here. Go to my YouTube page, subscribe, go to both of my Facebook pages, like and follow me. And everybody share the link, whether it's in WhatsApp, whether it's in on your email, on your MSN, on Twitter, TikTok, Clubhouse, wherever, Instagram. Share the link. I'll be right back in 60 seconds. We'll talk border security tonight. Is the PPP compromising our border, or do they care about the border at all? Are they appeasing Venezuela? Are they appeasing Venezuela? We'll discuss that these issues tonight. Share the link. I'll be back in 60 seconds. Come on, everybody. Share the link. Big topic. right, welcome back to Conversation with Rickford Burke. Tonight I'll be talking about the situation at Guyana Venezuela border. I'm not sure if any of you read the Kitra News article today, but it paints a very dire, dangerous situation at the border and tells the story of absolute neglect and abandonment by the government and the Guyana Defense Force, and or both, and the Guyana Police Force. I want to go to that article before I bring in my guests. I'll be talking to former Ghana Defense Force Lieutenant Colonel Leland Saul and the Shadow Minister for Foreign Affairs, APNU AFC Member of Parliament, Attorney at Law Amanza Walton Desir. She's going to join us a little down in the program. But let me bring you guys up to speed with the Kaiser News article. As a matter of fact, before they say I'm making this up, let me see if I can share my screen quickly. Good. I think I have that here. Good. So this is the Kaiser News article that was published in today's Sabbath News. It says miners, residents under siege in Itering Bang by Venezuela National Guard and sindicatos, however you pronounce that. March 20th, 2023, miners and residents of Itering Bang community located in the Upper Cayuny Mazaruni District Region 7 are pleading for the government's intervention and possible solution to the abuse and outright robberies they're facing at the hands of Venezuelan National Guard and the notorious Sindicato gang. This is a criminal gang based in Venezuela that comes across the border. Members come across the border and harass, rob, threaten Guyanese citizens. In a letter of complaint signed by miners, shop owners, and residents of Itering Bang, the residents highlighted their plight and explained that the situation had been going on for 6 years. We the miners and business people who operate on the Guyana side of the border with Venezuela in the Upper Cayuny area between Akarabisi and Itering Bang, would hereby like to bring to the attention of our government the abuse, neglect, danger, and outright robberies that we are facing on a daily basis for in excess of 6 years. According to the letter, there are 4 checkpoints between Akarabisi or whatever that is, Akarabisi or whatever, and Itering Bang, 1 guard, 1 National Guard, and 3 sindicatos. The residents explained that at all 4 checkpoints, they have to stop and allow the armed guards and sindicatos to check their boats. And added to that, depending on what they're transporting, they're required to pay $2,000 per drum of fuel at all 4 checkpoints. So that's 4 by 2. That's $8,000 these people have to pay, Guyanese citizens, just to travel in their own country. They added that they also have to pay when transporting food and supplies. There have been many instances where they are robbed by these people or have part of their stock seized by them. There's great risk if we choose not to stop, since gunshots come our way. So this is on the border. The residents at the Itering Bang community are complaining. They send this letter all throughout the government. The government has not said anything to date. This letter has been in circulation, my understanding is for close to a week. It went to the regional chairman of Region 7, it went to the government, it went to the GEF, not a word. I spoke to the regional chairman who said this is a regular feature in the region. He said that he was in one of those communities a few weeks ago, and he was stopped by a gang. He wasn't sure if it was either the Venezuelan gang or a gang on the Guyanese side, but he was traveling to one of those villages up the river from Itering Bang, and he was stopped. Now, the residents are also saying because the airport has been closed for construction, it makes it worse because everything has to be brought into the community by boat, subjecting them to these checkpoints by Venezuelan National Guards and the Sindicato gang on the Guyana side of the border. No help from the government. And they're saying even though they're GDF officers and police officers in the area, they still go through this. So I'm wondering, why do we have a defense force? Why do we have a police force? Why do we have a government? The borders are wide open, porous. Anybody could come across. Terrorists try to come to, use Guyana to go on to other countries, Europe, America. The borders are wide open, porous. The government seem to want to appease Venezuela because they don't want to aggravate the situation with Venezuela. Now, we understand that Guyana's GDF cannot fight the Venezuelan army. But the GDF has to protect Guyanese citizens. And here you are, citizens on the border are saying they have no protection. They have been abandoned by the government, abandoned by the Guyana Defense Force. And we're talking about between Akarabisi and Iterengbang. Now, let me bring in retired Lieutenant Colonel Leland Saul. Good night, sir. Thanks for joining us.
Good night, Rickford. Good night, listeners. It's a pleasure always.
Thank you. Keep sharing the link, everybody. Share the link. Now, Leland, you heard me read part of the letter. I'm pretty sure you're familiar with the letter. You read the letter yourself today. What is your take on this complaint by residents that they have absolutely no protection on the border and that a foreign army and a criminal gang are conducting checkpoints in Guyana, on the Guyana side of the border? Absolutely no intervention from the police, the Guyana Defense Force, or the government. What's your take on that?
Rickford, the security misfortunes in the Cayuni point to the government's inability to clearly define its defense strategy. Consequently, an absence of appropriate policy and operational responses. The current government is obsessed with internal security, so considerable resources are expended on the surveillance of political opponents and not on border security. Over the past couple of months, we have seen how the government treat with members of the society that they consider to be the opponent. Both state and non-state actors on our western borders pose serious for national security. It is regrettable that these security incidents are not addressed speedily. Moreover, we learned that Iterengbang airstrip is unserviceable for the past 6 months. Let me remind our listeners, Iterengbang airstrip is opposite Ankoko Island. Ankoko Island is in the Cayuni River, and the eastern half of Ankoko Island is Guyana's territory. It is illegally occupied by Venezuela. I therefore urge the government to articulate a defense policy because the absence of a defense strategy, the absence of a strategy has proven to be costly and will definitely impede national development. The strategy supports the nation's broader political and foreign policy aims with military power, both hard and soft, and it's provide a rationale for the use of the country defense force, its size, its structure, and capability. I understand and I know that we cannot confront Venezuela, but every nation, we have what we call elements of power, and the government must understand that. And those elements that I speak to in terms of power is basically diplomacy and information. And therefore, the government must make maximum use of diplomacy and information. We cannot just throw back and allow and do nothing because we want to appease Venezuela. We must understand what is going on the border. Who are these criminal elements? And what is the position of the Venezuelans, the Venezuela military? Is the military collaborating with the syndicatos to harass our citizens? I cannot understand why we just throw back and we are not doing anything about it. And I think as citizens, we must demand of the government to take some form of aggressive action in terms of diplomacy. I don't know why the Venezuelan ambassador was not summoned to Tacuba Lodge to explain what is going on. Why we want to appease Venezuela? And this government has done poorly when it comes to foreign affairs. The history is there. And so,
Go ahead. Go ahead. Finish. Go ahead.
yes, Richford.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
And so I expect them to do that. I don't know why they want to deny that there's nothing like that. I have credible information that there's problem on the border, and they must address it, and they must not lie to this nation. You know, the GDF is tasked with the defense of our territorial integrity, and the GDF must be allowed to do its work.
Now, another part of this letter says that because of the extended period of exploitation, harassment, and robberies, people are finding it difficult to live there and keep their business afloat, and they're fleeing. So we have a foreign army chasing, because of criminal activity and harassment, foreign army in collaboration with a criminal gang. And we don't know if some of the people who are identified as syndicatos are actual Venezuela military. They're chasing people out of the towns on the border, and the government has not said a word. Further to that, I'm going to also point you to an article that was published in the Guyana News Network a day ago. That says on February 8th, there was an incident where Venezuelan Venezuelan military officers fired at GDF officers transporting fuel in the Guyana'S River to base Itering Bang. And the article says that the army officers at Itering Bang are upset that they had to defend themselves, and the government made no mention about it, and they're trivializing their service as if it's insignificant. And people are questioning whether people in the PPP government had children in the military, if this is the way they'll treat them by not recognizing their service. And they're saying that this is what the article is saying, that in any other country they would have honored their soldiers for demonstrating bravery. Now the GDF, some of my sources in the GDF said that some contents of this article is not true. The GDF has issued a statement, a non-denial, basically according to GNN. And this is what the GDF statement says. GDF is committed to its ranks. Guyana Defense Force is concerned about a misleading article emanated from a purported news agency. It's a purported news agency, but the GDF is responding to it. So obviously the GDF gives this news site some legitimacy, which seeks to cast aspersions, on the care and concern being afforded our ranks who are deployed. The force reiterates that is committed to the welfare of its ranks wherever they serve across the length and breadth of Guyana. Issues confronting our ranks, whether they serve on the border or at bases, are never taken for granted, and their commitment to service is never undervalued. By virtue of its mandate, the force conducts operations guided by the orders and standard operating procedures assigned by the Defense Headquarters. With reference to the border issues, the force remains guided by the Commander-in-Chief, which is the President of Guyana, and members of the Defense Board in practicing international relations with a policy of diplomatic conscience. Consequently, the Guyana Defense Force wishes to urge editors and reporters that in the conduct of good journalism, they should avoid politicizing issues and seek comments before publishing. Now, I don't understand what nonsense statement is this. this is a kind of statement that should go to the ranks. It's saying that they're concerned about their ranks, they take their welfare seriously, etc. It does not address the issue. Was there a shooting at the border on February 8th? This is what GNN is reporting. This statement by the GDF does not dispute that, which tells me that there was a shooting at the border. What do you think? Have you heard of the shooting on the border? And how do you think the government should handle these issues? And why is the cover up? If there was a shooting, why is the cover up? The GDF issued a statement, no acknowledgement of what happened. Isn't this appeasement of one of Guyana's enemies?
It is appeasement of Venezuela. And I don't know why the government is doing that. I believe that the government should, as I said, make maximum use of the diplomatic channel to register the concern about what is happening on the western border. Obviously, the Venezuelan military and the criminal elements are emboldened because nobody challenged them. And no wonder they fire at the Guyana Defense Force. And so the government needs to be much more firm in dealing with this issue. They must make maximum use of the diplomatic channel, and they're not doing that. Additionally, they need to provide information to this nation on what is going on the western border. People need to know. We need to secure the border properly because not only the threat is along the frontier itself, but there are many reports of criminal elements penetrating deep into the interior of Guyana and robbing miners at Five Star and other locations in the Northwest District and along the Cayuni. And we must demand of our government to fix that. You cannot use your military resources on the coast to harass and intimidate your political opponent. That is what they're doing. The military should be actively involved in the defense of our border and our police element to also to maintain that public safety within the length and breadth of Guyana. And so they need to shift the focus where the real threat is. The real threat is on the border. It's not within Guyana. The real threat is not your political opponent or those who criticize you. Stop that nonsense and defend this country properly. And as I am on that point, I want to highlight that significant resources are being spent to upgrade the Kiteshore airstrip for tourism purpose. And we have the Itirumbang airstrip that is down for almost 6 months. Security should be a priority over tourism. And they need to fix Itirumbang airstrip. And so we can support the residents there and we can improve the security on our border. Come on, man. These people, they're visionless.
Indeed. Now, GNN responded to and I consider GNN to be a credible source of news. The government doesn't because it reports on some of their corruption and excesses and abuses. But GNN said in response to GNN's article, the PP government instructed the GDF to issue a vacuous and misleading statement on March 27, 2023. The statement gave the impression that GNN's story is inaccurate, but without actually denying or challenging the veracity of the story, a non-denial denial. The truth is that the government cannot deny this story because it's factual. The information we published was received from an unimpeachable source and was independently verified, including with photographic evidence, which we chose not to publish because of national security reasons. We therefore stand by our story. GNN can publish much more embarrassing details of this incident if the government wishes to challenge the truthfulness of the article. GDF officers came under fire from Venezuelan soldiers, and it's disgraceful that the government is hiding this fact, this act of aggression from the nation to apparently appease Venezuela. The officers who were fired upon defended themselves and had to defend themselves believe that in any other country they would have been recognized for their bravery. They told their colleagues that they feel their service, sorry, something popped up here. They told their colleagues that they feel their service Let me try to get back where I was. They feel their service and sacrifice to defend Guyana is being trivialized. They are right. The PP government does not value the service of the men and women in the GDF. This is a devastating charge against the government and GDF leadership, which will affect morale in the force. Both the officers and the nation deserve transparency. The GDF response implies that the commander-in-chief and the defense board are responsible for the lack of transparency. The GDF statement said, the force remains guided by the commander-in-chief and the defense board in practicing international relations with a policy of diplomatic conscience. The foreign minister conducts international relations on behalf of the state, not the GDF. This is the editorial from GNN. Moreover, what is diplomatic conscience?
You know,
Go ahead.
Rick, I just want to make a point, because when I think about the situation there on the border, and you look at the terrain and the distance between Accra Base and Iterenbang, I think it takes about 3 hours by boat. And of course, the river, it has a rapids and so on. Along that river, between Iterenbang to Accra Base, there's an airstrip. If you go up the Ikaraku River, there's an airstrip somewhere there. And so we need to address that issue while we wait for the Iterenbang airstrip to be made serviceable. Our security forces must adopt that posture to guarantee security to the citizens that live and work in that area. And therefore, government must do everything possible to ensure that the risk is reduced. And I am saying that they must make maximum use of the diplomatic channels. We have to look at all the treaties that we would have signed. We have to talk to our Venezuelan counterpart. We have to understand where the threat is coming from. And by now, they should know whether the threat is a purely criminal threat or whether this threat is also the doing of the Venezuelan government. We need to know that, because we must know what we are dealing with, or whether it's rogue military elements within the Venezuela security forces. We don't know. And all these things we need to get a clear understanding of, and so we can plan to defeat those things. What are our weaknesses on the border? What we need to do to ensure that we secure our border is important. We cannot run away from the truth and say that there's nothing like that. I know these people are gifted for telling lies and spinning the truth. They did that even at the Paul Slow, that case with Paul Slow, the Police Service Commission. These people are pathologically mendacious, man. Even the Prime Minister lying. You know, I mean, it's terrible. Those are the type of people we have that are leading us. They're lying. And when it comes to the security of this country, people are lying about it. I mean, you know, this is not a joke, Rickford. We can't get people who are lying about our safety and security. When it comes to the security of this nation, we have government official lying that incident like that never happened. I spoke with people in the GDF. You know what they tell me? I wouldn't confirm or deny. The mere fact they say that, these incidents occur. Why they're telling me that?
Right. Joining us now is the member. Joining us now is Member of Parliament Amanza Walton Desir. She's the Shadow Minister of Foreign Affairs. She's from the APNU AFC coalition. Miss Desir, she's an attorney specializing in international law, particularly maritime law. What do you make of the fact that Guyana is an oil-producing nation? I'm getting a feedback from someone. An oil-producing nation, and residents on the border complaining that the foreign army is harassing them, stopping them at checkpoints, taking their goods, demanding payment. Um, there was a shooting at the border, nothing from the government. Do you have confidence that this government can protect the Guyanese nation?
No, no, I don't. Good evening, Rickford. Good evening, Leland. Thank you for having me. Oh, absolutely
Good
not. I think
evening.
anybody who has been listening to me over the years would have heard me express my concern that the PPPC, they're quite unable to manage this um, on national security issues. The fact that they mislead the people of Guyana as well is serious cause for concern. When it comes to Venezuela, I think we know by now that the opposition, AP and UFC, we are very clear that we stand with the government in declaring to all and sundry that Essequibo belongs to us, that the 1899 arbitral award settled once and for all our western border. And so the controversy currently before the ICJ, we fully expect that it will be resolved in our favor. So I want to make that pellucid. Having said that, I have raised time and again my concern with the PPPC government's approach to managing our national security interests. I've raised it in the National Assembly. The way they have opened our registration of births and deaths system in such a manner that it allows anybody on the word of, for example, a Tushao or a JP in that area, them signing the paper saying, yes, this person was born here and that person can assume Guyanese citizenship. I have sounded the alarm time and again about the dangers of that and about the probability and possibility of the Essequibo being settled by people who believe that Essequibo belongs to them. This government does not appear able to appreciate the national security challenge that this poses. They do not appear to be able to appreciate the danger to the people of Guyana. And they're behaving like the proverbial ostriches and burying their heads in the sand and pretending that if we ignore the problem, it will go away. Well, I have news for them. It will not go away. It will get worse. And unless we have a meaningful bipartisan effort to deal with this situation, I'm afraid that what is happening at Ettringbang will continue. And it will continue unchecked.
Unchecked. Unchecked. I'll underline that word because I'm trying to understand. I hope the government is sending in reinforcement tonight because this. I spoke to the regional chairman of Region 7 today. He has lots of activities going on in the run up to Regatta and Bar because he's not able to join us. But he has said that letter was sent to him 5 days ago, and it also went to members of the government. And based on what my inquiry yielded from residents in Ettringbang, nothing has changed. They haven't seen a change in the security posture of the GDF officers. They're telling me up to yesterday, they were stopped by Venezuelan soldiers on the river transporting goods to their stores. So I'm not sure. What is your recommendation, Amanza, for the residents on the border who face this? They're saying they're about to pack up and leave because they don't think they have security and the government can't protect them.
I have no recommendation for the people. My recommendation is for the government that has a duty to protect its citizens. That is who my recommendation is aimed towards. And they need to, one, very urgently, like I said, convene a bipartisan group to be able to deal with this. Now, the PPP loves to take shelter behind, oh, it's a national security issue. We know it's a national security issue. And so certainly there are certain things that you will not put out in the public domain. But Rickford, you agree with me that an important aspect of national security is educating and alerting your citizens if there is the existence of a threat. And they have failed to do that. They do not even acknowledge that the problem exists. The other issue is, and I hope UTAD is listening, because we have been calling for the Foreign Relations Sectoral Committee to meet. That is the body in Parliament that will meet and be briefed on these issues. It is not as if this government is without the mechanisms to address this. The reality is that when it comes to our borders, politics must end there, and we must have a bipartisan approach to addressing this issue. Their problem is that they do not want bipartisanship.
Right.
And so they will continue to stumble around like blind men in the dark, and they will continue to jeopardize our safety and our security unless they urgently change course. So the recommendation is to the government, because historically, when people are forced out of an area, people move into an area. And you understand very well how that, the occupation, as it were, of those border communities by people who are taught since they're in nursery school that Essequibo belongs to them. I don't have to read and spell for you the security implications of that. You know what the fifth column is. You understand how these things work. It appears to me that Todd, Jagdeo, Ali, and all of them do not have a clue, and they refuse to seek help from the people, whether they want to admit it or not, who have demonstrated an ability and a capacity to deal with these issues. The other problem that I have, Rickford, is that we do not have an ambassador to Venezuela. Now, I have asked in the National Assembly, why has not an ambassador been appointed to Venezuela and to Brazil? Two of our most consequential interactions on this continent, and we do not have resident ambassadors. So they are out to sea. They are completely out to sea, and the people of Guyana cannot trust them.
Well, the GDF issued a statement saying they're conducting foreign relations. So apparently, foreign policy is left to the GDF.
Again, it shows you just the complete and total disarray that this government is in. They are unwilling because they do not have the capacity, and they are unable to address the matter because, again, they refuse to take advice from the people who can help, because they do not fall on their side of the political divide. And that is the way in which they are willing to jeopardize our safety and security. It's just another item in the laundry list of failings of the PPPC. We are getting reports. I, as Shadow Foreign Minister, am getting reports of Ettringbang about what is happening. And the government seems clueless, or they want to pretend as if they do not know what is happening. It's completely unacceptable.
Let me bring back in the national security expert, the defense expert here. Leland, Guyana is an oil-producing country. We're still, the oil sector is nascent. It's still developing, hasn't reached its full capacities yet. But just imagine we're an oil-producing nation. We have a controversy, not of our own making, but a controversy with a neighboring country, Venezuela, that is, they're baselessly claiming part of our country, our territory. And there's inadequate defense forces on the border. There's inadequate police to ensure law enforcement in the bordering communities. But the government has formed something called Regional Security Force, where there's a merger of police and GDF officers patrolling the entire coastline of Guyana, Demerara, Berbice, and the Essequibo Coast, and that is supposedly to safeguard the government from dissent, from people who are protesting, because that's their national security priority. Them black people protested in Buxton, against racism and Golden Grove against racial injustice. Those are the national security threat to the country, not the Venezuelans that are taking over the border and taking over the border towns. How could we get the government to change focus and to let them understand that Venezuelans, the Venezuelan military that is occupying Guyana, occupying Iteringban and those border communities, that's the real threat. Or maybe the government wants the Venezuelan soldiers there because they see Black people as the enemies and opposition supporters. Can you hear me, Leon?
Rickford? Yeah, I was getting some problem. I don't know what is going on here.
Did you hear the
I
question?
will respond to you based on what I heard.
Good.
Yeah, I think so. I want to make a point. First and foremost, I want to acknowledge what Amanza would have said about the Venezuelans' activity on the border, and actually they're forcing people out and they will take over. And when you look at the conflict in Europe, and I'm speaking about the war in Ukraine and Russia, and one of the problems that Ukraine has, in Ukraine, there's a large Russian-speaking population. And so Russia, under the pretext they're protecting their people, they did the same in Moldova, and they did the same in Georgia. And we must not lose sight of these things. We need to protect the border. We have to defend our border. And as I said earlier, the PPP is mostly concerned about their political opponents, and so they spend a lot of resources to monitor and conduct surveillance on their political opponent. I would not be surprised if outside my house here in Belgium, where I am, they have somebody in the street or something like that. So, and that is what they do. That is how the PPP operates. And so we have to get the government to understand the importance of national defense, the importance of total defense. As I mentioned earlier, we need a national defense strategy that take into consideration our political objectives and what our foreign policy objectives are. All those things, they must synchronize, and so we understand what we are about. I am totally disappointed. Apparently, the government does not understand what security is all about. For them, security is to keep my opponent, keep a tight lid on my opponent. And that is what it's about for them. But it's more than that. I am not certain how we will get them to understand. I know within the National Assembly, there are subcommittees, and I hope that the opposition members and those committees can get government to understand how serious this issue is and demand answers. These committees should work for the people of Guyana. My understanding that these committees, they really don't meet very infrequently and so on. And so we don't know what is going on. I must tell you that as a former military officer, I'm very much disappointed about the situation on the border. And I don't have the answer. We can get government to understand that this thing is very, very serious and it should be treated with some urgency. It's real sad. I cannot, I'm thinking about the regional chairman. He's going through his region and he's being harassed too. But this is Guyana, and we must be able to move.
The oil-producing nation of Guyana. The oil-producing nation of Guyana.
Right. And that is it. We need to spend money on security. We need to improve the capacity of the army. As I said before, we need to understand where the threats are coming from and what we have to do to blunt that threat. We need to do that. And maybe it would have been a good thing if you could have got the National Security Advisor on your program. And so he can talk and he can tell us what is going on. I think it's
I don't think the government would want the National Security Advisor to come on my program.
No, they need to come and they need to tell us what is going on, seriously. Because I am surprised that they cannot identify the threat at this point in time, and we have not taken measures to nullify those threats, whatever are those threats along the border. And it's more than just the miners are being harassed. We don't know who is coming across, what they're doing in the extractive industry, and all the unsafe mining activities, and the prostitution, and all the other
Not only
problems
that,
that comes with it.
GDF intelligence officers are probably all over Essequibo and all over probably farther afield. We probably have strategic GDF officers and communication experts, even probably, um, you know, uh, people with other capabilities from the,
You mean Venezuelan?
sorry, Venezuela. Yeah, sorry, Venezuela. What did I say?
Oh, yeah.
Said GDF.
Oh, sorry. I meant Venezuela. And that's
And that is
frightening.
that is an important observation, Rickford. That is a very, very important observation. And we do not know whether the government is aware. And I understand that there may be national security implications and they may be constrained from saying certain things, but at a bare minimum, the people of Guyana deserve to hear from the government. We are aware of the threat, we are monitoring the threat,
Yeah.
and we will provide the necessary guidance and updates to our citizens at a bare minimum. But to,
I think what
to operate as if this isn't happening is to ask Guyanese to disregard what they're seeing, what they are hearing, and what they are experiencing. And in the case of the people in Nettering Bank, on a daily basis. And so there's no convincing this government to take this seriously. The only way that I think Guyanese would get some relief is to vote these people out of office and bring people who have demonstrated the ability to manage, one, our international relation interactions properly, because as a small nation, your diplomatic corps is your first line of defense. They have decimated the diplomatic corps. Diplomatic postings for them, it's no longer a question of how capable you are. They seem to be handouts for loyalties and for favors done. And so a small nation such as ours, it is not by accident that we are a defense force. We're not an army, we are a defense force. It means we're small. Sorry?
Before Leela, before you make the point, I want to read this a few paragraphs from this editorial that I just really like, and it's synchronizing with what Amanda is saying. Now, after the GDF said that their policy is guided by their operations is guided by a policy of diplomatic conscience. I'm sorry, I don't know what that. So this is GNL responded. The foreign minister conducts international relations on behalf of the state, not the GDF. Moreover, what is diplomatic conscience? The whims and fancies of an incompetent president and commander-in-chief who is ignorant about foreign policy and national defense, and who is guided by an equally ignorant, misguided, and incompetent foreign minister? Diplomatic conscience is meaningless words that must have emanated from an ignorant mind that is clueless about national defense and diplomacy in relation to safeguarding our national security. If this government had any sense of its obligation to the nation, it would have disclosed this act of aggression to the nation and called the Venezuelan ambassador in to seek an explanation and lodge a protest. The fact that there's no ambassador in Venezuela, a critical frontier country, to guide the government is testimony to the appalling incompetence of the PP government of Air Finale and their inability to manage Guyana's international relations as well as its domestic affairs. The PP government runs Guyana's international affairs as if it's a family rub shop at Port Barad. They have no clue how to govern, conduct foreign policy, and ensure or provide for the nation's the nation's security and defense. With such failures, they have no business being in government.
No, they have no business being in government. And thankfully, the David Granger administration had the foresight to move this matter to the ICJ, given that we were in the good officer process for over 2 decades and it yielded no tangible or substantial progress. So this is a grave matter, Rickford and Leland. It's very, very grave. We are speaking about the very existence of our nation.
Yes.
And we're talking literally about preserving the shape of our map.
Yeah.
And I don't think that the PPP understands the gravity of what is happening. They seem more focused on raiding the treasury, emptying the natural resource fund, and enriching their friends, family, and favorite. That is where their focus lies. And on quelling any dissenting opinion and villainizing people who will speak out against them. Meanwhile, you have a threat on your doorstep that you refuse to even acknowledge. This is grave. This is serious. And it cannot be left up to the incompetents in the PPPC who, one, don't take counsel when it's given to them, and two, pretend as if this problem does not exist. That is a toxic brew, and it exposes us as Guyanese. It exposes us in a serious, we have to wake up and be serious about this thing. We can run around hollering not one blade of grass how much we want, but unless you have a government that is able to demonstrate. Look, in the National Assembly when we were reviewing the budget, I had to ask Hugh Todd, I said, Hugh, don't you travel? Because as a foreign minister, you would expect that he would have missions overseas. Line item for foreign travel in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs budget is zero. No, I'm being very serious.
No, because you is not the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Barton.
Meanwhile, so this is what I concluded. Meanwhile, you have local travel, 80 million, 90 million, 100 million. So I'm like, where exactly are you going? You know?
To the border. To the border.
No, he said the border areas. I am sure that he has not gone to one border territory. And after this program, I'm sure you're going to see a flurry of activity, and he's going to be flying and hopping all around. So I hope you're watching, because you need to get down there and you need to begin to interact with our citizens. The National Assembly has appropriated the money for you to so do, and you need to begin to do your work. If you can't do your work, then you should demit the post and give people who are competent to do the job to do the job.
Oh, the foreign minister. The foreign minister is a nice guy.
No, seriously.
Leland.
The government does not take the situation on the border seriously. I think the government is mostly concerned about bringing Venezuelan here, and under whatever scheme they have, ensure that they're registered as Guyanese so they can vote. And they do not see the threat to our security by doing that. And so the entire registration process in Guyana it's very simple and easy, you know. You only gotta get a GP to swear and say, oh, this person was born here. And so recently, scores of people came across the border and they're given Guyanese documents. And they did not think about the security implication. What they were thinking about, hey, we can get these people to vote.
You know, I'm sorry, I have to disagree with Leland. They thought about it, they just don't care. They appreciate. And this is what I think we have to understand about the PPP. The PPP understands that what they're doing jeopardizes the safety and security of Guyana. The reality is that they do not care.
Exactly.
Because they are interested in enriching themselves. I keep saying it's a mafia that we have masquerading as a government. They couldn't care less about it. They will pay lip service, but when it comes to their action, now look, I am a military kid, yes? And I have the utmost respect for the GDF. I believe that they have demonstrated a level of professionalism over the years. But the fact remains that their capacity has to be augmented, and not augmented to be used against the people of Guyana, but augmented to do what they are duty bound to do, which is to defend our territorial integrity. You see?
Amanda, you're the politician here. Leland is the technician. I'm the technician. I'm the troublemaker, they say. The government's priority, right, is misplaced. That's my view, the troublemaker's view. They aren't concerned with the foreign military conducting checkpoints on Guyana's territory. We have a foreign, this is almost like an invasion. We have a foreign military conducting checkpoints of Guyanese citizens on Guyana's territory. No problem there. But you let some Buxtonians and some people from Golden Grove and Victoria start to protest the entire GDF headquarters. Possibly some from Camp Stevenson, some from Essequibo, Borbis, wherever, would show up to make sure they keep those Black people in check, because that's their priority, to quell dissent and use the force of the GDF to quell dissent. Do you agree with that?
Look, it is obvious. I don't have to agree with it. Anybody assessing the situation will come to the same conclusion. But I want to say to the men and women in the GDF that you are duty bound to be professional. You are duty bound to be professional. And being professional means that when you are asked to undertake activities that are outside of your remit, you have to say, well, with all due respect, because you have a finite you have a finite capacity. You have a finite capacity, and therefore you have to have priorities.
Then would they be transferred to the same bank?
Well, look, again, this is why it is important to have professional people in place, one, and two. This is why it is important to have people in the seat of government who understand foreign relations and how to navigate this thing in a diplomatic way. We have had the likes of Rashley Jackson and Carl Greenidge and all of these giants to be able to help us to navigate it. And we did it with a fraction of the financial resources that we have now, a fraction. And so for us to be in this situation, it is entirely of the PPP's making, and the people of Guyana must hold them to account. And when the elections come, you vote them out.
Exactly.
So,
Leon,
if I may, I mean, you're the moderator, but I want to ask a man a question.
go right ahead.
Amansa, what is your solution? What advice will you give to the government?
Like I said,
Well, what will you do when you become foreign minister?
Appoint an ambassador forthwith. The idea of having a resident ambassador is that you have a rapid response mechanism for situations like this. This isn't rocket science. I'm afraid I'm not shedding any wisdom here. It is the most common sense thing to do.
But
have
they do not
an ambassador in place. You have people the likes of, for example, Ambassador Audrey Waddell and these people who have served in the foreign service and are very, very familiar with the hydraulics of the Latin America geopolitics. And you have them there languishing and not using their skill to support this.
The Indian government.
No,
They're Black people. They're government who want them.
I do not agree. I don't care what race you are. If you have the capacity, you must be put to serve if you are willing to serve. This notion that this government has the diploma, Charandas, that's the best we can do. And you have a situation next door to you that you do not have. You do not even have a senior foreign service officer in Venezuela. It is completely unacceptable. Appoint ambassadors immediately. That is your first line of defense, and appoint competent ambassadors who are able to be your first line of defense. You need one in Brazil urgently. You need one in Venezuela urgently. 3 years in, and you cannot have appointments to these positions. Completely unacceptable. Start right there. That is my first recommendation. The second recommendation is you must forthwith activate that mechanism where the leader of the opposition is briefed on these matters of national security. In David Granger's time as president, that happened. Gail Teixeira, if she wants to be honest, could attest to that. So you have that bipartisan mechanism where you deal with your national security issues in a bipartisan manner, because as we say, our politics end at the border. When it comes to the border, we're not giving a blade of grass. The third point
That's the policy. Amanda, that's the policy. Just repeating, not a blade of grass. That's their policy.
We got to act it out. The third thing that they must do immediately is to have a meeting of the Foreign Relations Sectoral Committee. That committee of Parliament has the power to call together experts from all spheres to be able to put the best heads together to, one, define very clearly, because the PPPC is unable to do this, what our national security interests are, and two, with help of the technocrats like Leland,
develop a strategy.
Craft it out. But hey,
you too bright. That's the problem with you. You are too bright.
I don't know nothing about, you know. So this is the problem that we have.
Jerry gonna do the work.
Who was that?
Jerry Guevara.
Leland, be serious. Look, this is our national security. We cannot leave this up. We cannot leave this up to the likes of those gentlemen. This is our land. This is our country. This is our nation. This is serious. A few years ago, you would ask if Putin would have invaded Russia by force, and everybody would have said no. The international
invaded Ukraine.
I'm sorry, what did I say?
Russia, you get it like me.
Russia is invaded Ukraine. People would have said no. The multilateral system will X, Y, Z, and those would have been the positions posited. But now that this has happened, it has completely upended all of those norms that have attended these situations, and therefore we have to act with the awareness that this is possible.
I want to raise another matter. I want to raise another matter that is of concern to the diaspora, and I want to be very guarded in what I say. It is our understanding from U.S. government sources that the president of Guyana has requested an official visit to the White House. I know Gail Teixeira is currently in Washington. I'm not sure if that's what she's there for, but I'm pretty sure there'll be a flurry of letters going back and forth from diaspora organizations to the White House talking about the atrocities and human rights abuses and extrajudicial killings and the denial of democratic rights and constitutional rights, human rights by Irfan Ali, and that he should not be awarded with a visit to the White House. Now, I'm not sure if my information is accurate. What's your position on, if that is true, what's your position on that?
This is a question for me.
Yes, the Shadow Foreign Minister. Do you believe that, based on the record of this government, that the president of Guyana should be awarded an official visit to the United States?
Look, what I will say is this. The United States is a sovereign country. They will meet and speak with whoever they wish to speak with. I don't think if Irfan Ali met with anybody that it could erase their atrocious governance. So you want to meet, you go, but your record on the ground speaks for itself. The U.S. State Department has just put out a report. So do not believe that you could go there and it will be separated from what your record is at home. And you go and you will open up yourself to more scrutiny. So, I mean, if Irfan wants to trudge to Washington, he can do that.
I think they're
If the
looking
US
for
wants to meet with them,
validation.
they can do that.
They're looking for validation.
Look, you cannot validate what is ab
Invalid.
initio invalid. The point is, their record is speaking for itself. You are seeing daily just the complete unraveling of the PPP. And what you are seeing is them trying to prop it up with photo ops. You are seeing them trying to stage activities to make them appear to be in control of it. They are not in control of it. The PPPC is out of their depth.
Yep.
And it is showing. It is showing in the numbers. It is showing in the way that they are using Parliament now as a political football to sort of shield them from scrutiny. They only come when they need money. It is showing in the fact that they're not turning up to the PAC to have their tenure scrutinized. It is showing in the fact that the subcommittees, the sectoral committees of Parliament, they're not meeting. So Irfan could go to Timbuktu.
My phone is blowing up.
No, Irfan could go to Timbuktu. That doesn't change that those are the facts. So,
Right.
I submit to the people of Guyana, the only deliverance that you have from these people is
Vote
when
them out.
election time comes, vote them out. You
Vote
go
them
when
out.
they come to your villages, demand better roads, because that is their duty to give you. You pay taxes. When they come, you demand everything that your community is entitled to. But understand that at their core, they are rotten. They are unfit to govern this country. And when elections come, you vote them out and put people who in the short 5 years that they have had, not perfect, but in those 5 years that they've had without oil money, were able to demonstrably improve the safety and security of this nation, were demonstrably able to raise the standard of living, were demonstrably able to improve the education sector, the health sector, every sector under this, under the AP and AFC administration saw progress without oil money. These guys have billions and billions and are unable to bring improvement to the lives
So
of
they're
Guyanese.
siphoning it off.
And Rickford Guyanese must see that and they must understand. So when they come doling out the money, you collect it. But know that when election comes, you deserve a government that does not need to bribe you, but that will govern in a way that will make sure that your communities, irrespective of if you're a government or an opposition, will see your communities developing, will see citizens thriving, because Guyanese deserve no less. These guys need to be voted out forthwith.
Thank you. Leela, last word?
Rickford, you know, like Amanzo, I think the only solution to this problem, which are the security along our borders, we have to get rid of the PPP. There's nothing else we can do, because simply they do not understand. They don't care, I should say. They do not care anything about our security. They have their own interests, and their interests come first above that of the nation. And we don't want no group of people leading us who are going to put their interests above that of the nation. I am very sorry about what is happening on the frontier, and I will ask the members of the joint services to be very professional and with the limited resources and guidance that are being given to ensure that our borders are secure. You're outside there, and I know that you can go in the river and you can patrol that river, and you must assert yourself. Let us defend our territorial integrity. We cannot afford to yield not any territory to Venezuela. As far as I'm aware, the Cayuni River from Akara, BC to the Wenamu belongs to Guyana. Even on the northern shore, I think it goes to the high water mark, wherever it is along the Venezuelan shore. And therefore, you must know that, and you must assert your authority in that river. Let our citizens enjoy peace and tranquility, and they must be able to engage in productive activities along that river.
Thank you. And I want to leave with this again. I just find this so apt. This PP regime runs Guyana's international affairs as if it's a family rum shop at Port Morant. They have no clue how to govern, conduct foreign policy, and ensure or provide for the nation's security and defense. With such failures, they have no business being in government. I'll leave you all with those words tonight. That's the GNN, not my words. GNN.
As a quarantine girl, the people at Port Morant will do a better job.
Thanks, guys. Thanks. I think we had a wonderful discussion, and see you again next time. Good night, everybody.
Good night. Good night. Take care. Ciao. Peace.